corrupt judge Craig DeThomasis is in the news again for something horrific. Megan Fox, award-winning journalist, broadcaster, author, yet again has covered a story on Judge Grudge, Craig DeThomasis, who is presiding over a temporary injunction on me right now in Levy County in Florida, and yet I have filed 3 times for him to have himself dismissed or recused, and he has denied it 3 times. Now it's in the higher courts. Well, the higher profession of journalism is covering him in the news. As a matter of fact, we can see the title of the article right here. And it's about to get weird up in here. All the way up here in Ohio, I'm not sure we got creepy judges like this. But maybe we do, and maybe I just don't know about it. But they're not in the news. DeThomasis is. 5 Florida circuit judges defend a lawyer in a weird cover-up. And what he did is, frankly, pretty bad. So Megan goes on to write, a shimmering legal drama in Levy County, Florida just got even weirder. As if it wasn't weird enough with my case, right? On one side is What the Hales, the content creator, Jeremy Hales. He's up against the belligerent 8th Judicial Circuit of Florida Judge Craig DeThomasis, whose favorite pastime is yelling at defendants and his lawyers for hours without hearing any defense while coddling the plaintiff. Yeah, that'd be Lynette. And what should have been a 1-hour hearing, well, I mean, honestly, 15 minutes! Remember what Judge Craig DeThomasis said he could do within an hour, though.
I think we resolved 5 cases in an hour and a half, maybe 6, I don't know. Sometimes I resolve 10 in less than an hour.
Judge DeThomasis turned a simple protection order case into a First Amendment battle of the ages that might end up in the Supreme Court of Florida. Now, I truly believe that it will end up in the Supreme Court. So Lynette has permanent civil protection order against her based out of Ohio, which legally both state statute and federal law must be enforced by Levy County sheriffs. But the Levy County sheriff and the state attorney particularly wrote a document stating do not enforce this, which places all legal liability upon that sheriff office and the state of Florida, not protecting my civil rights, which then Lynette runs to get an injunction, which is denied multiple times for lack of evidence. Then DeThomasis actually grants it. And then he even tells her there's still no evidence until she runs to the courthouse and says his lawyer tried to bribe me, and then he places a temporary injunction on me, which frankly, I don't care. I don't want to communicate with Lynette. I don't want to be anywhere near Lynette, and Lynette should be nowhere near me and should not be communicating with me. But the things I do care about is he attacked my First Amendment right, freedom of speech. If it's constitutionally protected, he has no authority to take it away whatsoever, and yet he did. So now Lynette is the sideshow, and the battle for freedom of speech is the main event. So Megan goes on to say these things in this article, which I'm going to pin this article in the pinned comments on YouTube and Megan's YouTube channel, where you can see where she's talked more about this. She says, I reported last week that the judge with a grudge refused to recuse himself for the 3rd time, even after showing a wild and obvious bias against the defendant. And he has been beyond biased. At sometimes I've called him Judge DeBiasis instead of Thomasis. So Greek man with a temper, with a tremendous amount of bias for an old exotic pole dancer who looks like a turd. But now there's new information about DeThomasis in the 8th Judicial Circuit that should make everybody sit up immediately and take notice. And it goes all the way back to the governor's office in Florida. Something is very, very wrong in Levy and Alachua counties. And I can claim that and stand up and testify and say, preach it, journalist Megan Fox. I can testify to that. There's more than something wrong. It's starting to feel like almost everything is wrong in Levy County. And it stems out of Otter Creek with Russ the Sus, where we are living in Otter Creek, where that water's real good. All right, in 2014, William Ezel was one of the brightest prosecuting attorneys in town. He was well liked even by defense attorneys. In fact, the Thomases, who was a defense attorney at the time, reported that Ezel would share strategy with him before the trial. An odd thing to do, according to the opinions of lawyers that I know. The Thomases called him a very valuable asset in the prosecutor's office. Now let's pause just for a second. Understand, before Judge Craig DeThomasis was the judge in Levy County, he was a defense attorney, and Ezel is a prosecutor. By the way, Silver Scam worked with the Thomases as defense attorneys in Alachua County. Remember, the Thomases wanted to be a judge. He ran for judge, and he lost to a former student. Now, what is Ezel, the prosecuting attorney, sharing strategy with the defense attorney for? That is beyond, if not a conflict of interest, if not completely and totally illegal at some aspects, and I'm sure there are aspects of that, then definitely immoral and definitely a conflict of interest. My lawyer, Randy Shockett, isn't going to go over to Silver Scam and go, by the way, this is our defense. I'm going to share it with you right now so you know how to strategize. There are those that say, Jeremy, you're sharing your whole defense online. I can assure you, there is nothing I share online that isn't vetted and filtered first through my legal team. And there are some things that are shared online for specific reasons that the viewer will never, ever know. It's strategy. It's a chess game. And I like winning. So let's go on here. But Ezel had a dark secret that should have destroyed his career as a lawyer forever. In September 2014, Ezel went into a Tan USA business in Gainesville, Florida, and filmed a let's just say a non-clothed female in a tanning booth over the wall of the tanning booth. His psychologist would later tell the Florida Supreme Court circuit or judge that oversaw his bar hearing that he was overcome with anxiety because his wife didn't let him go to tanning salons. Starting to sound like the wife was pretty smart not letting him go, because she was a dermatologist. And that anxiety made Ezel take out his phone, climb up on something, and film the undressed woman in the booth next to him. Listen, I've had an anxiety attack or two in my life, and I have never yet went, I can't breathe, get the phone out, where are unclothed women, where are they, I have to film them. Never once, never done that. You're all right. The peacocks are going crazy right now. It's breeding season. I've never even taken my phone out and tried to film the peacocks breeding. Do you understand this pathetic excuse? By the way, I wonder if Ezel's defense attorney went over to the prosecution and said, hey, here's our strategy. We're going to talk about anxiety that makes men take their phones to film half-clothed women in tanning salons. Don't think that happened. Now, what's even more concerning is what Judge Craig DeThomasis has to say about this. But let's just go on. By the way, Megan goes on to say, those of you who suffer from panic attacks and anxiety may find this explanation puzzling. If you've ever been using breathing techniques, meditation, medication, those are okay for your anxiety. But who knew voyeurism all of a sudden could relieve and cure anxiety? By the way, this is not an excuse for anybody who has anxiety out there, which I know many of us do, to go out there into the next tanning salon and go start filming. Please don't do this. All right? This is not a cure. For a visual telling of the story, I helped create a Lego experience that will help illustrate what happened here. You've heard of gonzo journalism, but I may be the first to invented Lego journalism. And here's Megan's Lego tanning booth with Ezel doing his thing. Again, I will pin her YouTube and you can see her Lego creations there. No less than 5 judges from the 8th Circuit, that's Levy County. 5 judges from the 8th Circuit, most of whom are still on the bench, and a bunch of prosecutors and victims advocates swallowed that story and ferociously advocated for Ezel to be reinstated to the bar following a measly 90-day suspension. All right, so you violate somebody's rights, and all of a sudden you only have to go and be suspended with your legal I can't fathom it. I can't fathom it. Your legal, let's see, if you get a law degree, do you get a certified to be a lawyer in a certain state? Yeah, whatever it is. He got a 90-day suspension. The most shocking defense of Ezell behavior came from Judge David Kreider, Chief Assistant State Attorney Jeannie Singer, and State Attorney William Severon, who all said that the creepy peeping Tom incident occurred in his private time and shouldn't have any effect on his professional life. Okay, now I struggle here. I struggle here because if you're an individual who has dedicated your life, literally your life, to protecting others to make sure illegal acts don't happen, or if illegal acts happen to those individuals, they are punished accordingly. Now all of a sudden, whatever you do, whatever laws you break in your private time, that's okay because it's your private time. Last I checked, even in Levy County, it's illegal. Voyeurism is illegal whether it's in your private time or whether you're on the clock. Last I checked, the laws apply to no matter what time of day, no matter where you're at, no matter who you're working for, or whether you're working not at all. Illegal is still always illegal. Megan Fox goes on to say, who knew that if you're a prosecutor, you could commit crimes against women in your personal time and get away with it? Well, in the 8th Circuit, which covers both Levy and Alachua County, it seems par for the course if you know the right people. And here's the key right here. Judge Craig DeThomasis, the insufferable windbag who loves the sound of his own voice more than justice, defended Ezell in front of the bar, saying, I don't think this is necessary, a black eye on the legal profession. Now, let's stop for a second right there. As a matter of fact, Craig DeThomasis also went on to say that this is a positive thing, that this will make Ezell a better person and a better prosecutor in the long run. How in the world does breaking the law and getting away with it actually make somebody a better lawyer and prosecutor? Now, I've got to back up a little bit because DeThomasis is defending his good old buddy, Ezell. Who's defending the woman with the camera over taking inappropriate, horrific images of? How does she feel? Does she think that Ezell is going to be a better lawyer and prosecutor because of this? Does she think, oh, yeah, this isn't a black eye on the legal profession at all? Black eye? This is more like a murder scene. This is insane. Somebody did something so horrific to a victim, and victims' advocates actually show up in defense of Ezell and not of the female that this happened to. This is by all means illegal and by all means inappropriate. And who's at the forefront fighting for Ezell? Craig DeThomasis. Now, if Craig DeThomasis is the one who's stating, hey, this is okay, he'll be a better man for it, why isn't he telling Lynette, hey, you'll be okay, you'll be a better individual once I send you to jail for violating the civil protection orders? No, he's not doing that at all. This seems to me that Craig DeThomasis loves to actually defend. Remember, he was a defense attorney before he was ever appointed as judge, appointed by Ron DeSantis. He never got elected, and I don't ever believe he will again. After the world, the planet actually knows who this man is and what he's about, and they're learning in a heartbeat. So what is this man going to do to actually defend victims? Now, I'm a victim in this. You don't hear me going around stating that I'm a victim, but I'm a victim of Lynette and Crook, and I'm stating it in court. And what is DeThomasis doing? He wants nothing more than to put a permanent injunction on me for things I've never, ever done. He wants the planet, he wants me to be responsible for the planet. If communicating a crime against a vulnerable woman in a tanning booth bed isn't a black eye on the profession, in DeThomasis' opinion, I'd hate to hear what would be, says Megan Fox. Omar, the division chief of crimes against women, and his underling, Lua Lepikin, both showed up to defend Ezel. These are individuals that work in the department, crimes against women, and they're defending Ezel, the man who's having an anxiety attack with his camera and taking photos and film of unknowing and unclothed ladies. This is just insane. I can't even fathom. I can't even fathom, because if I did this, they'd be out there marching to try and put me in jail. Oh my goodness, famous YouTuber, content creator, Jeremy Hales. You'll never believe what content he's creating now. What a black eye on the profession of YouTube. Down with YouTube. Ban YouTube. And it would go on and on and on. All right, so what does Megan go on to say? Her Chavarria, you know, it's a really hard last name to say. And so there it is right there. But that individual goes on to say that Ezel was highly respected by other attorneys. I wonder what the victims that big last name represents would think about his high regard for a predator who terrified a woman in a tanning salon. Is anybody in the legal profession, whether it be a judge, victim's advocate, whether it be an attorney, thinking about this actual woman who this happened to? Stacy Steinberg, a legal skilled professor and supervising attorney at the Gator Teen Child Juvenile Law Clinic, also appeared to stand up for the peeping perv. And she reported that Ezel was her children's Little League coach. I'd have an issue with that, to be honest, if this individual was my kid's coach. Who knows what else could have happened? And that treats everyone with respect. Interesting, seeing as he didn't treat this unknowing woman with respect. Well, except those, Megan goes on to say the exact same thing. I'm reading it as I go, and I'm putting, you know, Megan and I, we might think like this. It's kind of scary sometimes. Or it's awesome, one or the other. Megan goes on to say, well, except those unsuspecting women in tanning salons, I guess. Alachua Court Clerk J.K. Buddy Irby, who has since retired and handed down the position to his son in a demonstration of nepotism. Well, let's be clear. Nepotism is alive and very well in Levy County and Alachua. And Circuit 8. The nepotism is insane. The good old boy system is insane. You're related. If I know you, I'll take care of you. You'll never go to jail. Is insane. And so J.K. Buddy Irby, who since retired to hand down the position to his son in a demonstration of nepotism, testified that he knew Ezel for 29 years. He said Ezel was a fine lawyer, a wonderful family man. I wonder what DeThomas's wife has to say about the family man. No, let's go even further. What does Ezel's wife have to say about him being a family man? The dermatologist, you know, the one that doesn't want him going to tanning booths. Obviously, not because of his skin, because of his sick issues. Okay, Irby called him a rising star. He was rising, all right, Megan goes on to say, right over the tanning salon booth wall with his phone and camera. Oh my goodness. 4 other 8th Circuit judges testified for Ezel to save the creeping peepers law license. That's what we were looking for, that word, the license, law license. And Senior Judge Bo Bayer, Judge James Kolaw, your last name is Kolaw, you're destined to be a judge, right? Your co-counsel, not Kolaw, some of you will get that. Judge James P. Nylon and the now deceased Judge Browning, which Judge Browning is the one who died, passed away here recently. All except Browning are still sitting judges. Not only did almost all the whole circuit show up to make sure Ezel could keep the honor of an officer of the court despite his perverted obsessions, 32 other unnamed officials sent letters to the court in his defense. Like, this is wild. This is absolutely insane. Who was sending letters in defense of the victim? Was anybody present for the victim? That's shocking enough, but it gets worse. Then sitting Governor Rick Scott himself issued an executive order sealing Ezel's criminal past from the public, all the way up to the governor's office. Right here we can see it. It's right in the article. And again, I will pin the article. And I really want everybody to read the article for themselves. I want you to not just take what I say verbatim. I want you to find the evidence. I want you to see the evidence and make educated decisions about it because you have the evidence. And the article does the exact same thing. Now, therefore, I, Rick Scott, Governor of Florida, in obedience to my solemn constitutional duty to take care that the laws be faithfully executed, the laws. And pursuant of the Constitution and the laws of the state of Florida, issue the following executive order immediately. The Honorable Brad King, State Attorney for the 5th Judicial Circuit of Florida, referred to as the assigned State Attorney, is assigned to discharge the duties of William P. Severon, State Attorney for the 8th Judicial Circuit of Florida, as they relate to the petition, to seal a record of all matters related to William Richard Ezell. The governor took this heinous crime and then sealed it, keeping it from everyone. The planet needs to know. The planet needs to know Judge Craig DeThomasis did nothing for this victim. Craig DeThomasis did everything to try and hide what happened to this victim, much like he's trying to do in his courtroom. And yet it's all public information, and he does not like it being disseminated out on the largest media platform in the world, the planet, YouTube. This might be the weirdest and most offensive part of the executive order, signed by Scott right here. And I've seen some orders like this before. In my own case, all residents of the 8th Judicial Circuit are requested, and all public officials are directed to cooperate and render whatever assistance is necessary to the assigned state attorney so that justice may be served. Okay, I know what I'm thinking right now. I'm going to be like, justice to be served. So who knows what Megan's probably thinking the exact same thing. Yep, she is. She says this: how is justice served by hiding the scary criminal past of a guy who practices law today, who now enjoys a veneer of legitimacy due to the actions of an entire legal community? So this is just one person. This is the whole community in the 8th Circuit coming together. You want to talk about corrupt? You want to talk about gross? This is insanity, what's going on in Florida. All the way up to the governor and the people who we're supposed to trust with our safety. These are the same people I'm trying to entrust with my safety in Florida, who have let me down over and over and over again, who have literally incriminated themselves over and over and over again. It's mind-blowing what's happening in Florida. They elevated a weirdo with a fetish over the safety of mothers and of daughters and call it justice. How in the world can this be justice? How is any justice happening then? How's any justice happening in my case now? We can see that it's not. Who is this guy Ezell in the first place? And why would the governor care so much about a deviant man instead of the woman of his state, and issued an executive order sealing his dirty deeds from the public? The guy is an admitted creeper, and he blames it on his wife. This actually sounds like Lynette, another creeper stalker, who then blames everything on Crook, right? Well, he should have been run out of the legal profession and reduced to selling used cars or something. But instead, the governor of the state covered up his entire past. But Scott's not the only governor of Florida involved with Ezell's. Ezell's wife, Tara Ezell, was appointed by Governor Ron DeSantis, who also appointed Judge Craig DeThomasis. You see how this whole circle all comes back around? The worst judge in America currently. Now, I personally believe that, but Megan wrote it. The worst judge in America currently, Craig DeThomasis, who I will do everything in my social influence and power, if I have any at all, to make sure he can never do these things to individuals again. I will make sure when he runs for re-election that I make sure the world, the planet, knows about him, what he's done, and the injustices, and he never, ever sits on that bench again. And I will do it all within the law. All right. To the board of Gainesville Regional Utilities Authority in 2023. That appointment was so controversial that Mrs. Ezell never showed up to one meeting because she was ousted before she began due to the failing the requirements to hold the position, the Gainesville Sun reported this. One of the first board members on the Gainesville Regional Utilities Authority has stepped down just after a day earlier being appointed by Governor Ron DeSantis. Dermatologist, how does a dermatologist get appointed to a regional utilities authority? You got to be in the know. It's all who you know. That circle of them good old boys. Dermatologist Tara Ezel, who didn't attend the first GRU authority meeting Wednesday and wasn't officially sworn in, will no longer join the board. The Gainesville Sun confirmed Thursday with the governor's office. The Sun first reported that Dr. Ezel was the fourth non-city resident reported to the board, and that her electric provider was Clay Electric, putting her at odds with the two requirements to be on the board. There were only two. Attempts to reach Ezel Thursday were unsuccessful. A lawsuit was filed Monday against DeSantis by Gainesville residents to contest the appointments. So who is Ezel? And why have the two governors of Florida and an entire state circuit court rallied around them for so long? Well, PJM reached out to Governor DeSantis and asked several questions about the case, including if he would be willing to unseal it for the public interest. And at the time of publishing, he had not responded. But if he does, Megan's going to update this article. PJM, who also reached out to all of the judges and the prosecutors named in this article with detailed questions about the protection of Ezel's escapades, if they respond, we'll update. It's doubtful they will, which, keep in mind, DeThomasis is one of those individuals, right? I'm sure you get that, you understand that. DeThomas, who loves to hear himself speak and yet has nothing to say about his cover-up at all. And I want you to see exactly what Megan had to say, which is why her article and her YouTube channel are in the pinned comments.
What's that? We have breaking news here at WTH News. Yes, with all of this discussion of voyeurism, the governor, Ron DeSantis, has actually put in new legislation against it. Now, that's odd considering that this entire corrupt system has tried to cover it and protect it. Now, here's something we have to consider. What is the legal definition of what this act actually is? This is important because you can see here it is taking a picture of, well, let's just say your no-no spots or watching somebody do the no-no, right? I think we all get what this is. It's adult activity or taking pictures of somewhere you should not be taking picture of. That is the legal definition of what this V word is. Now, we have dumb people. As a matter of fact, ignorance I find intolerable at times with the amount of ignorance. There are times where I think a crayon has a higher IQ than individuals such as Victoria Munsell, who's emailing what the hails. Now, our administrator has shared with me that there was an email that came from her stating that the digital voyeurism law directly affects every video you film, obsessing over someone else's life without their consent. Actually, that's stupid. Completely and totally ignorant. A crayon has a higher IQ than this individual once you actually understand the legal definition of what voyeurism is. So let's look at the bill. By the way, Victoria will be in court because she has also practiced unprotected speech, stating that she's selling all my information on the dark web. So she will have her day in court. There is no doubt. DeSantis signs bill strengthening penalties for digital privacy violations. All right, this whole thing about digital privacy violations is all about tracking individuals. Governor Ron DeSantis signed legislation enhancing Florida's law against digital privacy violations, increasing penalties for unauthorized use of tracking devices, and updating definitions and penalties related to digital voyeurism. Now, you understand the legal definition of that V word has to do with adult things or taking pictures of what you should not be taking pictures of. Again, in the context once you throw that S on it. Governor Ron DeSantis signed 2 pieces of legislation into law on Friday, intensifying Florida's legal measure against the digital privacy violations. The first piece of legislation, Senate Bill 758, carried by Senator Jonathan Martin, amends existing laws regarding the use of tracking devices and its applications, including Apple AirTags. The measure criminalizes the unauthorized placement of tracking technologies on another person's property without their consent. That's interesting because it was Lynette and Crook that stated publicly that they were going to put trackers on my vehicles and equipment. Okay, let's see what else we have here. Upgrading such offenses from a second-degree misdemeanor, which is now a third-degree felony. Offenders now face up to 5 years in prison and a $5,000 fine. Well, Lynette and Crook are facing all of that as it is anyway with the violations, the contempt of court. The law carves out exemptions for law enforcement. Oh, so Popo can do whatever they want. Obviously, they know when I'm at a county meeting, caregivers and parents of guardians with tracking minors or vulnerable adults under stringent conditions. Tracking devices and tracking applications can be used to follow locations or movement of another person, potentially without that person's knowledge or consent. Some applications have legitimate uses, but may be assessed by a third party without a user's consent. A Senate legislation analysis reads, other applications commonly target potential customers interested in using the technology to track the movements and the communication of another without their consent. Here we go with the whole consent thing again. Furthermore, CSSB 758 mandates that sellers of vehicles disclose installed tracking devices to buyers and potentially instructions for the removal, aiming to enhancing consumer protection and transparency. So first of all, this has nothing to do with me or anybody in my sphere of influence because we're not psychotic like other individuals, such as Victoria Munsell, such as Lynette, such as Crook, such as Lizzie Bailey, such as Paul Hembry, such as, and we could keep going on, right? We're not that stupid. We have a higher IQ than a crayon. So we're not dumb enough to put tracking devices on anybody or anything without somebody's consent. The second measure, and this is what Wikipedia thinks she's so smart about. The second measure, House Bill 1389, brought forth by Representative Hillary Castle and Representative Lindsey Cross, updates the legal framework for surrounding voyeurism in the digital realm, renaming video voyeurism to digital voyeurism. The law revises penalties reflecting the seriousness of privacy invasions using modern technologies. So, for example, what would fall under this? You hide a camera in a changing room. That's digital voyeurism. You hide a camera in somebody's bedroom without their knowledge. Say you're a landlord, they're a tenant. That's digital voyeurism. You own a hotel and you have a hidden camera in the hotel room. That's voyeurism. That's illegal. By the way, this does not, nor will it ever trump your legal right to film in any public place or to film from a public place. If I am in the road and somebody's dumb enough to actually be exhibiting themselves in a actual, add that S on there, act with windows wide open so the world can see, who's at fault? Me for filming or them for showing? And I think we already know it's them for showing. And if you're filming from a public location, a road, your property in Florida, anywhere, Walmart, you name it, it's absolutely legal. How can Victoria, who claims to be the Wikipedia of all encyclopedias, be so stupid? I mean, I can't wait to have this person in court with her cankles and everything. Her deep voice and all of her cankles. I mean, it is. You think Lynette is hilarious? I think this is going to be hilarious. Under the bill's purview, a first offense by an individual aged 19 and older is now categorized as a third-degree felony. The category encompasses more severe penalties for either disseminating or commercially exploiting voyeuristic content. And understand, voyeuristic content is 99.9999% of the time all about X. Throw that S on the beginning. That's the legal definition. Moreover, if the perpetrator is a family or a household member, or if they hold a position of authority or trust and a relative to the victim, the offense escalates to a higher felony level, and the adjustment underscores the increased responsibility and accountability for the positions of power or trust. Interesting, considering this man who was a lawyer and all the judges and all the victims advocates all came rallying around him so he wouldn't have any charges, all the way up to the governor's office. But now the governor doesn't want to respond to Megan Fox. Now the governor wants something else in place. The bill also specifies that each act of unauthorized viewing, recording, or dissemination constitutes a separate offense. So I wonder how much Ezel would actually get incriminated for now, or would the corrupt system continue to try and protect him and sweep it under the rug, only in Florida?